Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to give that introduction to block-based themes. My hope is that you'll leave with an understanding of what block-based themes are, why they're important, and how they come together. So first, I'm Kjell. I work at Automatic, where I lead our theme design squad. So I spend all day designing and building themes. I'm at Kellar on Twitter, WordPress.org, GitHub, just about everywhere. And for the past year or so, I've been working along with many, many other folks in the community to help define and explore the future of WordPress themes. So that's what I am here to tell you about. Um, and I'll take you through this in 4 sections. First, I'll talk through some of the context around themes today. Then I'll talk about what block-based themes are and how they work. And afterwards, we'll look at some of the ways that building a block-based theme is different than building a more traditional theme today. And finally, I'll answer a few common questions and share a couple of resources. So let's start with that context. Many of you probably have a decent sense of what themes are like today, but I'll just review a few of the more cumbersome aspects, since I think they help tell the story of why block-based themes exist. So traditional WordPress themes today involve a lot of custom code. They all use more or less the same set of functions to pull content in from the database, but then what they do with that is almost entirely up to the theme. Your theme dictates the entire structure, so most of the HTML of your site, and most, if not all, of the styles too, unless you're using a page building plugin or something like that. So for example, here's 2021, the new default theme from December. And I'm just going to talk about that header at the top for a minute. So everyone who worked on 2021 coded that header by hand to perform exactly the way that the theme's header and navigation was designed to behave. So we had to write in all of its desktop behavior, its mobile behavior, the way submenus work, etc. And all that code is almost entirely different from the markup that created the header and menu for 2020, which in turn is completely different than the header markup used for 2019 or any other default theme. And it takes a lot of time to custom build all that, and it also locks the user in. So if you love this theme, but you don't like something about the header, you almost definitely have to jump into code to change it. Even if you wanted to just make the site title bold or something, like you need to edit CSS or you need to find a plugin that can do this for you. It's far from easy. 2021 also has its own custom colors implementation, just like many themes do, and uses standard customizer controls about the exact colors you get to change, the type of controls present, and this whole light-dark mode support thing is all custom built. So if you switch to another theme, it might do something similar, or it might not. Your new theme may not have any custom color settings at all, and that sort of thing gets even worse if you're using a theme that does something more complicated than just custom colors. Say your theme adds font options or some sort of homepage builder. When you switch themes, you lose that functionality completely, and that's really disorienting and unexpected for users. So those things, the complexity of building a theme, the rigid quality of the theme's layout and styles, the lack of standardization around theme functionality, and the risk of losing functionality on theme switch, those are just a few things that we can improve upon with block-based themes. So now let's talk about them and what they actually are. So obviously, block-based themes are themes that are built entirely out of blocks. They're made for full site editing and the upcoming global styles feature. Both of those features are not yet a part of WordPress by default, so if you're not familiar with them yet, don't worry, we'll talk through it. And the last bullet here is just noting that today, block-based themes only work alongside the Gutenberg plugin. That's just because they're very experimental, and the features that they use, full site editing and global styles, are not yet available outside of the plugin. So what follows here is really a bit of an early look at this work, and you can expect to see some sort of official release at some point later this year. So anyway, let's talk about full site editing first. It's more or less what it sounds like, gives users the ability to edit their entire website using one interface, and in this case, that interface is blocks. So for the past few years, we've been able to edit the post and page content of our sites in the Gutenberg block editor, and many of us are generally familiar with that by now. So the full site editing project expands those tools out to cover the entire site, the header, the footer, the sidebar, etc. And this happens in a new area of WP admin called the site editor. So users can edit the entire website using the same patterns that they're already familiar with from editing their content. And this is all made possible with a new kind of theme that is built entirely of blocks. So in a block-based theme, all of the theme templates are just standard block markup paired with settings and styles for those blocks. And unlike my keynote slide here, the theme developers generally don't even need to write most of this code because it can be built and then exported from right within the site editor. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of blocks to replicate an entire WordPress theme. So the Gutenberg team is working to build a full suite of site editing blocks like these to eventually cover all of the different pieces that would make up a WordPress theme. But once everything is a block, users can do all sorts of things that they couldn't when everything was hard-coded. So back to my example of just wanting to make the site title bold, that is obviously super easy because we all know how to make something bold in Gutenberg. You can even just edit in place while you're there and see how it would look on your live website. If you want to hide the site tagline, you can just delete it, knowing that you can add it back in later because it's just a block. You can add any other blocks and rearrange them. You can put a search bar in your header. You can just make the entire page just one huge image. With a block-based theme, the user is in control of their entire site's layout, which is very different from a traditional theme. Beyond that, block-based themes also work with a new style system called global styles. So today in Gutenberg, you can customize individual blocks. You can change the text color, background color, font size, etc. And full site editing expands that to the entire site via a new sidebar called global styles. And this means that block-based themes don't need to have those custom-built color or font options in the customizer. They can just rely on this standardized, scalable interface that uses the same UI that people would use if they were editing individual blocks right up to their entire site color and font settings. So now that we know what block-based themes are, let's get a little bit more technical. Building a block-based theme is fairly different from building a traditional theme, but it's frankly a lot simpler, which as a theme developer, I find extremely refreshing. But a quick caveat before we start here. As I mentioned, block-based themes and full site editing are under very heavy development, and it's all still experimental. So what I'm going to talk through here and the code that I'll show is just a snapshot of how this all looks today, but a lot of it is subject to change. So let's start with the files that make up a block-based theme. Some of this is going to be new and some of it won't be. But we'll start with the usual stuff. So you still need a style.css to have that doc block at the top that defines the theme. You need a functions.php file to enqueue that style sheet and an index.php file, but in the case of a block-based theme, that can just be empty because it doesn't need to have a template in it. From there, you need some new folders full of template files, which will define your theme's layout. You have two folders of them here. We'll talk about those in a second. And you need one new file called experimentaltheme.json, and that defines the global styles for your theme. So let's talk about the templates first. Block templates are HTML files that contain an entire full page layout. So these template files follow the same template hierarchy that a typical PHP WordPress theme would follow. So, you might have an index.php, a frontpage.php, and a category.php file in your theme. And similarly, a block-based theme would have index.html, frontpage.html, etc. They all correspond to the same pages. Block template parts are also HTML files, but these are meant to be reusable across multiple full page templates. So for example, you might make template parts for the header, the footer, the sidebar, etc. Anything you want to include on more than one of your block templates. And as I mentioned before, the markup in all of these HTML files just comes directly from Gutenberg. It's all blocks. It's the same block markup you'd see if you selected code view in the block editor. But you don't even really need to do that because you can create, edit, and export these templates from right inside the site editor itself. The site editor has a panel that allows you to browse and create brand new templates and template parts. And once you've customized things and made all the layouts and all of the templates that you think you would like in your theme, if you have the plugin installed, you have an extra item in the ellipses menu in the upper right there that has an export button. And if you were to click that, that will result in a zip file download, which contains all of the block templates and template files that you've built in Gutenberg. So in most cases, you won't need to edit these. You can just copy them over into your theme. And that's mostly all you need to do. They're already full of completely valid block markup since they came directly from Gutenberg. So now that we've covered templates, let's move on to the global styles configuration file. So the purpose of this, as I mentioned, is to provide default styles and settings for blocks. A lot of what you'd usually put in a traditional theme style sheet will go in here instead. The major difference between this file and a style.css is that what you enter in the JSON file is used to populate presets and global styles in that sidebar. So it makes these styles editable by the user directly in the UI. Here's a simplified look inside experimental theme.json file. As you'll see, the file has a top-level global section, which contains settings and styles for the entire theme globally. And below that, you could have any number of block-specific entries. And these perform basically the same way as the global one, but they apply only to individual blocks. So for example, under global settings, you would set things like the color, gradient, font family, font size, presets. And those are the sorts of things that we already provide for Gutenberg-ready themes today, but for block-based themes, you would define them in the JSON file instead of in functions.php. And each of the presets that you enter here will become a custom CSS variable, which you can use on the front end and back end, and you'll see how that works in just a moment. You can also specify some settings here. So in this case, I'm specifying that I do want the custom line height controls to be active, so users can edit the line height of things if they're using this theme. If you're setting typography settings for like the paragraph block, for example, you could specify that you want the drop cap feature to be available in your theme, or you don't, that sort of thing. And below that, the styles section allows you to set the background color, text color, link color, the font specifications, that sort of stuff. And you'll see here those automatically generated CSS variables are in use. So this is how you map the styles directly back to the presets that you set in the settings section above. And in addition to being loaded into the automatically generated style sheets, which are pulled into the front and back end to reflect your settings, that JSON file populates that sidebar so that users can personalize these settings as needed. What you enter is really just a preset, and then the user can adjust as they see fit for their site. So now that we have the JSON file out of the way, I'm going to touch back on style.css. Since most of the basic theme styles exist in the theme.json file, block-based themes shouldn't need nearly as much CSS as a typical WordPress theme. But the CSS hasn't gone entirely. The JSON file is not meant to entirely replace CSS. You would still write CSS for custom block styles or for super specific theme styles that wouldn't really be editable via Gutenberg settings. So a good example is animations or transitions, that sort of thing. So to review, here are those files again. You have your block template parts and your block templates to provide the full page layouts and reusable pieces of layouts. Experimental theme.json to provide the base styles for your theme. The functions.php file, the empty index.php, and the mostly empty style.css file. So that's how we build those themes. And Now I'll just leave you with a few FAQs and some links. So the first question is, can existing themes transition into block-based themes? The simple answer for today is sort of. Today, the switch is more or less all or nothing. So if you place block templates in the experimental theme.json file into a traditional theme, it'll overwrite all of your other templates, which is probably not exactly what you want. But there are open issues in the Gutenberg repository that are exploring the ability for themes to more gradually ease into full site editing. So for instance, only opening up the header for customization at first, or the footer or the sidebar, that sort of thing. But these are all still in progress. So I'm sure there will be a resolution, but I don't know exactly what it is yet. But it's also important to note that existing themes are not being depreciated for full site editing. So if you do nothing with your existing theme, don't worry, it's still going to work for now. It's just not going to take advantage of the features that we've talked about. And a thing that I like to remember is that existing WordPress themes power, 30-something% of the entire web. So any change is not going to happen really drastically and very quickly. So there's no need to be really nervous about things changing or breaking. This is really, at this point, a very opt-in sort of situation. Another really great question is, what if I don't want users editing the entire site? And I can completely relate to this because I've personally been in charge of running like a medium-sized publishing site on WordPress, and there's absolutely no way I would have wanted all of the editors and authors jumping in and rearranging stuff. So there are two things to know about this. The first is that user roles are still going to be your friend. So as usual, authors and editors will have access to posts, but they shouldn't be able to edit headers and footers, etc. And aside from that, there are GitHub issues discussing the option of letting theme authors lock various sections of templates. So I don't know exactly how that setting will materialize, but it is something that's really on people's minds, and this comes up all the time when I talk about block-based themes to people. And the final question is just sort of an existential thing that a lot of theme authors ask as soon as I talk to them about this. So if users can customize the entire site, like what is the purpose of a theme? And I totally get it. Themes in the past had so much control, and this shifts really huge chunks of that power to the user. But the way that I like to think about it is that we as theme designers and developers, we're providing the informed perspective, the structure, the design, and the help to help these users and help these sites be successful. And then inevitably, the users are going to take that and make the site their own over time, whether that's just by adding content or customizing it. And that's still the goal, and that's still what full site editing works towards. It's just that it makes certain parts of that process easier for both us as developers and designers, and also for the user as somebody who might want to customize and populate their site with content. So that's the way I think about it, at least. So last thing is I'm going to share a few resources for you all in case you want to learn more. The first is the 2021 blocks theme, which is called TT1 blocks, just to help separate it a little bit from the actual theme if somebody were to search for it. But this is a block-based version of the 2021 theme. This is live in the theme repository as of last week, so you can install it alongside the Gutenberg plugin. And as soon as you have both of those installed and activated, you'll be able to test a living, breathing, and super experimental block-based theme. Unless something is broken, which is very possible, you should be able to try out just about all of what I've shown in the presentation today with this theme. Next up is the Theme Experiments repository on GitHub. Here you can find the source code for that theme, 2021 blocks, as well as many, many other block-based themes, from really simple to pretty complicated. There's also a very nice little boilerplate there called Empty Theme that you can use to kickstart your very own block-based theme if you would like to mess around with that. And finally, the documentation for block-based themes lives here alongside all of the other block editor documentation. If you just go there, click on developing for the block editor and themes, then there's a tutorial, and there's also information about both the themes.json file, theme.json file, and the block-based themes in general. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much, and we'll see if people have any questions.
Hey, Kjell. Yeah, we have a couple. And your FAQ is great. Actually, they answered a couple of my questions. For the block template parts, this comes from Chris. For the block template parts, are there any standard parts that are required, like the header or the footer, or are they similar to widget areas where a developer can add them if they see fit?
There are no standard template parts at this point, so you can create whatever template parts you need for your theme. But the thing I will note about it is that you can specify semantic tags for template parts. So if you do say have like a header or a footer or a sidebar, and you want to make sure that it has like a header HTML tag or a footer or an aside, you can specify that in the block markup, and then it will be sure to render the semantic tag for that template part.
Great. Okay. Will widgets be replaced by blocks eventually?
So there is, I cannot remember if this launched already in the last release, but there is, it might have been punted to the next one, but there is an effort to start allowing people to use blocks within widgets, and that is kind of like a small step towards full site editing, in that it allows you to like start placing blocks in your widget areas. I think once full site editing is an actual launched thing, it sort of eliminates the need for widgets, because widgets, I think conceptually, are just blocks anyway. And your theme will allow you to place them anywhere you want. So you can make your own widget area and place any kind of widget blocks you would normally place inside of there yourself.
Great. Okay. That definitely answered it. And I also think Tim mentioned that it may have been punted to a later version.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I see that. Great. Thank you, Timothy.
So Jack was asking, and I'm not sure if you've tested this or who's been testing, but obviously page builders are very popular. How will page builders and block-based themes, will they play nice together, or is it one or the other?
I think that still remains to be seen. I know that like when Gutenberg came out, a lot of page builders started having support for Gutenberg blocks and that sort of thing. But I haven't personally seen a lot of motion from like those companies to really get engaged with full site editing and build in some sort of compatibility or anything like that. But it is still in very heavy development, so I think it just remains to be seen.
Great. Okay. You mentioned user roles with block-based themes. So are admins currently the only ones that can modify the parts?
I don't know, actually. I mean, admins definitely can, but I'm not sure if roles below that can either right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim posted you need the edit theme options.
Okay, cool.
I got it. Okay. I guess that you can change that as well with themes if you need to.
Right. Yeah.
And do you know if custom post types and custom taxonomies are being supported?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are being supported. Custom templates were just added. That was merged in last week, I believe. And I believe there's still a PR for custom taxonomies in the works, unless that also merged in last week and I missed it. But yeah, that's definitely something that'll be part of this.
presentation. Like that answered pretty much every question I had on block-based themes, and I think everyone's been big. It's been a big question mark out there. Anyone else? Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, I think we're done. Kel, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
All right, and Tim, thank you very much. And everyone, have a great night. And we'll see you next month, third Tuesday of the month. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.